Actually, we can now talk to Dr. Bharat Pankhania, who is a senior clinical lecturer at the University of Exeter's Medical School. He's worked as a consultant in communicable disease control for local authorities and Public Health England. So we were discussing there this idea of testing at the airport. I hope you were able to hear some of that interview. Is this a good idea and maybe a good alternative to the 14-day quarantine programme?
I don't buy it. I'm so sorry, but I have not heard of this procedure which would work. Remember, the basic science is as follows. You get exposed to the virus, and whilst you're incubating it, you will have no signs, no symptoms, and no evidence of infection. Therefore, you will test negative. And you will go on for 2, 3, 4, 5 days. And usually the median time is about 5, 6 days after exposure when you go on to develop the infection. And at that point, you become positive. Therefore, to test at the airport is ceremonial. You may only pick up those people who have got overt, clear infection. You will also have an error, and the margin of error is 30%. So 30% are positive, but they're reported as false negative. So we have an issue with this testing. The only clear way is to have quarantine. I'm so sorry to say it. And the quarantine should be enforced. You should also have a conversation with the people who are arriving and tell them you will stay at home. We have to enforce it. You will be fined otherwise. And then you can also test them whilst they're in quarantine. That will give us a pretty good degree of precision as to, have they gone on to convert to becoming a case? And then we identify their contacts as well. There is no quick fix, I'm afraid.
OK, but what David Evans, that we were just talking to from Collinson's, who are suggesting this test, who want this test at the airport, he was saying that actually, if you do test negative for coronavirus at the airport, even if it is a false negative, what it shows is you have such a low viral load that you're not really going to be very infectious. So actually, in other words, it's fine for you to go out and about. You disagree with that, do you?
I do. And my reasons are, again, I repeat, you could be falsely negative, 30%. 30% is a very high number. Secondly, of course, you'll be negative if you're incubating it. You're going to go on to become positive in 4 or 5 days' time in most cases. So by the time you become positive on the 4th, 5th day, you will have been mingling with a lot of people and generating new cases. We don't want this.
So another idea that's going the rounds that we hear the government may be considering is that there's either a test at the airport and then a second test a few days later, or some sort of test halfway through your quarantine period, maybe after 8 days or something. You're shaking your head again. So that doesn't work either, right?
I have not heard of any test that can convince me with conviction that we have a test that tells us you can come out of quarantine early. I do not know of any.
OK, so is 14 days, in your view, 14 days quarantine the only way, and is 14 days the minimum?
Unfortunately, that is the longest incubation period we have for coronavirus. Most people go on to be positive about day 5, 6 or thereabouts. But as a margin of safety and precaution, we know that people can be positive up to the 14th day. So what we have to do really is test after quarantine. Have they become positive? It's not only a case of go home, stay at home, come out after 14 days. We need to check that at the 14th day, you are free of infection.
Well, it sounds like you're fully behind the government's quarantine. But let me just ask you one question about that. This is a blanket quarantine on anyone coming back from any bit of Spain. Do you agree with that? Because what the Spanish government are saying is, look, yeah, we've got infection rates that are quite high in some areas in the north, but actually in the islands, the Canaries, the Balearics, it's very low, sometimes lower than the UK. So does that make sense to you?
Yes, I have every sympathy for people in the Canary Islands, the Balearics, and other parts of Europe where the number of cases is low. The trouble is, it's only low because you may not be testing, you may not be testing extensively, or it is truly low. We don't know. And it is a difficult call. And I sympathize with people who say, we have been in a low area. Why are we being penalized with a quarantine? I leave that decision to Prime Minister Johnson. But overall, I think they've made a good call this time.
Right, really good to talk to you. Fascinating discussion. Dr. Bharat Pankhania there, Senior Clinical Lecturer at the University of Exeter. Many thanks.